We spend a lot of time in school, don't we? From the moment we set foot in primary school, school becomes a big deal in our lives. It's where we discover who we are and where we come from, where we start asking questions about the world and figure out how to face it head on. It's where we realize what we're capable of, both in and out of the classroom. School is where we learn to work hard and play nice. And the friends we make at school are often the ones who stay with us for life. Our schools are the launch pads for our future. But how did we get here? Schools were very different 50 years ago. Things were pretty rough, in fact. In 1965, we found ourselves, quite unexpectedly, an independent country and in charge of our own destiny. The road ahead looked tough. Many of our people did not have jobs, and our people were divided. Before 1965, not every child went to school. Many went straight to work without knowing how to read or write, or even spell their names. Of those who did, some only attended school when their families could spare them from work. As a young nation, we didn't have much, but we made the best of what we had, our people. We were determined to make our schools work. Education was the key to building our nation and bringing our people together. We believed that every child should have a fair shot at the future, no matter his background. In those early days, our goal was to make sure there were enough places in school for every child. Our population was growing fast, existing schools were bursting at the seams, and while some schools had concrete buildings, others were housed in makeshift shacks. Some students found themselves studying in atap huts because there just weren't enough classrooms. In the 1960s, our engineers were building one school a month. Schools came in 3 standard designs. Yes, cookie-cutter style. It was the fastest way to grow. With so many students, we needed lots of teachers too, urgently. Teacher recruitment kicked into high gear. Some 16-year-olds who had just completed secondary school themselves soon found themselves back in school as teachers. After a day of teaching, they would rush to their own teacher training lessons in the afternoon. Between 1959 and 1968, the teaching force almost doubled from some 10,000 to over 19,000, filling the more than 130 new schools that sprang up. Good teachers needed good materials. We used to buy textbooks from other countries like the UK. Different schools used different materials, and some were better than others. And they were expensive. Not everyone could afford their own books, and that wouldn't do. So we started creating our own made-in-Singapore textbooks. All students and teachers across all schools could now use the same good materials. That raised the quality of teaching and learning all around, very quickly. But education was about much more than bricks and mortar, or teachers and textbooks. Education would need to teach our young to respect and recognize our common values and look beyond differences in our skin color or religious beliefs. During the colonial period, different ethnic and religious groups had set up their own schools, teaching in their own languages and dialects. In 1959, we achieved self-governance. With this came the chance to decide for ourselves what we wanted our education system to look like. We knew it was time for a change. Because if we were going to survive as an independent nation, we all needed to work together as one. And that meant we would need to understand each other. We decided that all kids would learn English, in addition to their mother tongue. This ensured we'd not lose our cultural roots even as we learned a common language. This policy was key to pulling together our young nation. We learned and laughed together. We created together, challenged each other, and formed shared memories with our diverse lot of classmates. School was where we bought 10-cent bowls of noodles and played kuti-kuti at recess. Schools became our common space, where Singaporeans from all walks of life came together. There, we learned that even as we were all wonderfully diverse and different, deep down, we were also very similar in our aspirations, hopes, and dreams. School wasn't just where our people came to know each other, it was also where young Singaporeans would come to know their country and what it stood for. As a young nation, we invented new ways to help our students learn what it meant to call Singapore home. Every day, teachers and students sang the national anthem and recited the pledge, a single sentence which in 38 words powerfully expressed the hopes of a newborn nation determined to find its significance. It is in the fields, halls, and classrooms of our schools that the seeds of our national identity were sown and began to take root. As our nation developed, so did our schools. We knew that the future of our fledgling nation lay in the hands of our young. In the late 1960s, our students began learning practical skills in school so that they would be well prepared for the jobs available to them. We also needed to build a people who were rugged, adaptable, and resilient. Schools and teachers looked to CCAs, or ECAs as they were known earlier, to help us. As part of uniformed groups and marching bands, students learned discipline and cooperation while building their mental toughness. Sports teams and performing arts groups blossomed in schools. Our young people developed and showcased their interests and talents. They hurdled, jumped, sang, danced, acted, played, and painted their way to distinction. Students built their confidence and determination along the way, even as they built strong friendships. They learned firsthand that achieving excellence required teamwork and hard work, but it was worth every ounce of effort. Our students put their values into practice, not just in their schools, but also in their communities. These shared values formed the heart of what we considered a good education. The future of the nation would be built on the character of our people, and that remains true today. The huge investments we made in our schools, teachers, and students had a clear impact. In the 1960s, only 2 in 3 students who entered Primary 1 made it to secondary school later. Every child is different. Education could not be one size fits all. We wanted to help students learn better at their own pace. So we created different streams. Today, practically every child who enters Primary 1 will not only enter but complete secondary school. And 95% continue to post-secondary education institutions. We had managed to not only provide enough places in school, but keep our students in school. But that was not enough on its own. Education went beyond the academic. We aspired to give every child a more well-rounded education. Students in our schools were exposed to the sports, arts, and music, not just through CCAs, but as part of the curriculum. As technology advanced, so did our classrooms. We spared no expense to help our students and teachers keep up with and learn using technology. This would prepare them for the workplace of the future. Today, our system has become more flexible. Every child has more options to develop their unique strengths. Schools specializing in math, science, sports, and the arts have been set up. More resources and facilities are available to help every learner progress at their own pace. And at each stage of the journey, more paths have been developed to allow each student to choose the route that suits them best. The goal is the same as it has always been: to give every child a chance to stretch themselves and reach their potential. Today, we have over 33,000 teachers in more than 360 schools. We have 3 ITE colleges, 5 polytechnics, and 5 autonomous universities. We have raised a generation that treasures our rich and varied cultures, while holding close the things that make us all Singaporean. Putting our shared values into action remains at the heart of education, which at every stage gives our students many paths to choose from in order to reach their goals. Through 50 years of change and growth, one objective has held constant: to give every child a chance to reach for the stars. Over the past 50 years, our pioneers have worked hard to shape our present. And it is the young people of today, that's you, who will take us forward. You are the pioneers of your generation. What will you bring to the next chapter of our Singapore story?